Hello dear students, welcome to the second part of lecture 7 where we were discussing about the design of eccentrically loaded welded connections. We have already established the understanding of eccentric load and eccentricity. We know how to calculate the primary shear stress and the secondary shear stresses in this case, and why the primary and secondary shear stresses are developed inside the weld. In case you haven't watched that lecture, go and first of all see that lecture. A link to that lecture will be there on your top right corner of the screen. Now let's move further with the design of eccentrically loaded welded connections. We are clear about all the terms in the primary shear stresses, how we are going to calculate the primary shear stress. Now let's take all the terms one by one in case of secondary shear stress. The first term is your bending moment, which is simply your P cross E, where E is the eccentricity and P is the applied load. The second term over here is R. R, as I told you in the first part itself, is the distance. Basically, it is the distance from the center of gravity of all the welds. And for our design, we will take this point to be the farthest. This is because if we take the point over here, then the secondary shear stress, it will be straight like this. The secondary shear stress which is developed at this point is the magnitude of this secondary shear stress will be less than the magnitude of the secondary shear stress which is developed at this point. That is because the secondary shear stress is directly proportional to this distance r. Now suppose if I'm going to consider the secondary shear stress of this point, I'll end up with a smaller magnitude of secondary shear stress and I'll end up with designing a weaker weld. So that's why we will always consider this distance r to be maximum. Wherever it is maximum, we will take that distance only. For example, for this particular configuration, at point A, at point B, at point C and at point D, your R will be maximum. Suppose you have a weld over here as well. This is your weld. Since now you are having a weld over here, the center of gravity, or rather the centroid, will shift a little bit towards the left. So now your new centroidal point is this. Okay. Now if you consider this point, if you consider the center of gravity or the centroid at this point B and C are no longer the farthest point, whereas point A and D are still the farthest point, So for calculation of secondary shear stress in this particular case, you will either choose point A or point D. You will not go for B and C, because if you will go for B and C, you will end up designing a weaker welded connection. Now this figure first over here is only showing you basically the direction of the primary shear stresses, and you can see over here that the primary shear stresses induced at different points are all equal. The magnitude of the primary shear stress are all equal. So our aim is to first of all find the primary shear stress and then the secondary shear stress, and then the resultant of the primary and the secondary shear stress, which is obtained by vectorially adding the primary and secondary shear stress. So for calculation of secondary shear stress, there were three terms, which were your bending moment, the distance r, and j. So you know what is bending moment. It is P cross E. The concept of r is also clear to you by now. Now let's see what is polar moment of inertia. Polar moment of inertia is basically the resistance to bending. Now suppose you have a plate like this, okay, this or a beam like this. you have put your Cartesian coordinate system at this point where this is this direction is x direction, this is your y direction, and this is your z direction. This direction upward is your y direction, this is your the horizontal axis is your x direction, and this is your z direction. Now if you consider the bending about your x axis, this will give you the second moment of area about x axis. If you consider the bending about y axis, which will be something like this was your y axis. So if you consider the bending about your y axis, this will give you the second moment of area about y axis. Now your polar moment of inertia is basically the bending about z axis. This is your z axis, which is like this, which is also the resistance to the torsional moment, which is or the torsional deformation. So this is your this kind of bending will cause, sorry, this is your z axis. So this kind of bending will cause basically the resistance to such kind of bending is known as your polar moment of inertia. So your polar moment of inertia is your resistance to torsional deformation. Now suppose this is your same beam which I have shown you in the form of a book. This was your x direction, this was your y, and this was your z direction. The moment or the bending moment about x direction will give you the second moment of area about x axis. Bending moment about y will give you the second moment of area about y axis, and the bending about z axis will give you this moment about z axis will give you the this polar moment of inertia. The resistance to such type of bending moment is known as polar moment of inertia, which is, now if you take this particular thing over here is the cross section of the beam. I have shown you this. Basically, your beam was rectangular, but I have shown it in a form of a square just to make the dimensions more clear. So suppose you have a square beam, square cross-sectional beam, and this is the cross-section of that beam, where this direction is your x-axis and this is your y-axis. Now, in order to calculate the polar moment of inertia, what we will do, we will take an elemental area which we will call as dA. This is your elemental area, and r, this distance shown by this red line, is your r. R is basically the distance of this elemental area from the z-axis. This elemental area, r, is the distance of this elemental area del A from the z-axis or the z-axis. So your polar moment of inertia will be given by r square, which is the distance of the elemental area del A from the z-axis. So this is your area integration sign, and your polar moment of inertia is equal to the area integral r square del A. But if you consider this distance x, this distance r, it is basically x square plus y square. It is basically x square plus y square. Therefore, you can write this equation over here as this equation, which says that J is equal to integral x square plus y square del A. Okay. Now, if you further write this equation in terms of basically this del A, what is this del A? This del A is your del x dot del y. So if you write del x and del y in place of del A, it will be equal to integration of x square del x plus integration of y square del y. And this term over here is actually your Ixx, which, or the second moment of area about x-axis, and this term over here is basically giving you the second moment of area about y-axis or Iyy. So in basically your polar moment of inertia can be written as Ixx plus Iyy, where Ixx is the second moment of area about x-axis and Iyy is the second moment of area about y-axis. Now you can see that again this is a cross section of a beam where the thickness of the beam is t, and this width of the beam is L. Okay, the width of the beam is L and the thickness of the beam is T. So according to your previous equation, where your polar moment of inertia was Ixx plus Iyy. Mind it, I have written G1 over here. That is because this polar moment of inertia is calculated about this center of gravity of the the cross section of this beam. That is because this is the point where your Cartesian coordinate system was kept. This is the point where your Cartesian coordinate system was kept. Now your Ixx is equal to LT cube by 12 and your Iyy is equal to L cube T by 12. This thing is very easy. This is basically the second moment of area about X and Y. So writing this down in this, the values of Ixx and Yyy in the first equation, you will get the polar moment of inertia of this particular beam or about this cross section as LT cube plus TL cube upon 12. So this is how you are going to calculate the polar moment of inertia. Now having said that, the polar moment of inertia in our case will be slightly different. That is because we will basically consider, for the ease of calculation, we will consider the polar moment of inertia slightly different, because and that we have a valid reason for that. If you consider this as the cross section of your weld, T is the thickness of the weld and L is the length of the weld. So your Ixx will be equal to LT cube by 12 and your Iyy will be equal to L cube T by 12. Now you already know that T is a very small quantity. This is the smallest length in the weld, and when you are going to further cube this quantity, it will further be very small. So this complete Ixx is a very small quantity. That's why in order to calculate the polar moment of inertia of the weld, we can neglect this Ixx. We can neglect this Ixx. So your polar moment of inertia will be equal to Iyy, or it will be equal to L cube T upon 12. Now you have to be very careful while neglecting Ixx, because since this weld is horizontal, that's why we have neglected Ixx. Had it been since this weld is horizontal, that's why we have neglected Ixx. Had it been a vertical weld like this, so again this will be your x-axis and this will be your y-axis. So for this particular case, your Ixx will be equal to TL cube upon 12, whereas your Iyy will be equal to T cube L upon 12, where this distance is your T and this distance is your L. So you can see that for the vertical weld, the value which is small is Iyy. So for this particular case, your polar moment of inertia will be equal to T L cube by 12, which is Ixx, and you are going to neglect Iyy. So you have to be very careful. You cannot say that in every situation you have to neglect Ixx or Iyy. If the weld is horizontal, you have to neglect Ixx. If the weld is vertical, you have to neglect Iyy. Anyhow, you have to neglect the term which is basically having T cube, because this is a small quantity, and for the ease of calculations, we are going to neglect this term only for the ease of calculation. Now, in order to summarize what we have learned till now for calculating the secondary shear stress, is that your secondary shear stress is directly proportional to the distance r, and you have to take the maximum distance in order to get the proper strength of the weld. And your polar moment of inertia, while calculating the polar moment of inertia, you are going to neglect the term having T cube. For the horizontal weld, it will be Ixx, or the second moment of area about x-axis, and for the vertical weld it will be IYY, or the second moment of area about the Y axis. Now another thing which you have to keep in mind is that while calculating or while finding out the centroid of, or the combined centroidal point of all the welds, you are going to treat the weld as a line. You are going to treat the weld as a line. That means you will assume that it does not have any thickness. This is because of the two reasons. The first one is obviously the ease of calculation, and we are going to assume this because the thickness of all the welds are same. The thickness of all the welds are same, so we can very easily assume the length basically the weld to be a line while calculating the centroid. So for example, your actual centroidal points XC is calculated as summation of AIs and XIs upon AI. But for the welds, since the thickness is same in for all the welds, you can assume it to be summation of LIs, XIs upon LIs. Now where LIs are the individual length of all the welds, again you will be having a summation sign over here. Yeah. So Li is the length of all the welds, and Xi is basically the distance of the center of gravity of this particular weld in question from the origin of your Cartesian coordinate system. Now for example, you are having a weld over here like this, where L1 is the length of the first weld and T is the thickness of the first weld. G1 is the center of gravity of the first weld, and you are having another weld over here. You are having another weld over here, which is having a length L2, and obviously the thickness will be same. That was our first, that was the main reason for treating the weld as a line for calculation of the centroid. And G2 is the center of gravity of the second weld. Y2 is the distance of the centroid of this particular weld 2 from the overall centroid of the structure, which comprises of these two welds. And Y1 is the distance of this basically it is the distance of the centroid of the first weld from the overall centroidal position or the centroidal point. Now first of all, we have to, for calculating the x coordinate of this weld or the centroid of this weld, we will be using this formula AIs XIs upon summation of AIs. But since we are we have to assume the weld as a line, we will be using this formula, which is LIs XIs upon summation of LIs. And for calculating the y coordinate of the centroid, we will be using this formula, which says that LIYI and summation upon divided by summation of LIs, where the distances XIs and YIs are the perpendicular distances. So we are having these two welds. This one is your first weld and this is your second weld. First of all, we have to fix a Cartesian coordinate system with respect to which we are going to measure the distances. So we will fix the coordinate system at the bottom left corner of the weld. At the bottom left corner of the weld. This is your x and this is your y. So your xc will be equal to L1 x1 plus L2 x2 upon L1 plus L2. Now since you can see that the length L1 is equal to L2, so we can write this as Lx1 plus Lx2 upon L2L upon 2L, where L is the length of the welds. Since L1 and L2 are equal, that's why we are using L. X1 is the distance of this central point or the centroid of the first weld from this axis or the origin of the Cartesian coordinate system. So this distance is L by 2. So it will be equal to L multiplied by L by 2 plus L multiplied by, again this distance is L by 2. L multiplied by L by 2 upon 2L. It will be equal to L square upon 2L. This will give you L by 2. So the x coordinate of your centroid is located at a distance L by 2 from the origin of your Cartesian coordinate system, which, and intuitively also you can calculate, since the length of L1 and since the length of weld 1 and weld 2 are equal, so obviously this x coordinate will lie at the center. Similarly, you can calculate the y coordinate. Y coordinate will be equal to L1 y1 plus L2 y2 upon 2L, where y1 and y2 are the distances as shown in the figure, and that's how you are going to calculate xc and yc, which are the coordinate for the centroidal point. Now once you have the centroid, you can calculate the distance r. You already know how to calculate the polar moment of inertia, and moment m is already given by the magnitude of the force acting on the structure multiplied by the distance, or E, which is the eccentricity. So in order to calculate the overall polar moment of inertia about the center of gravity of all the welds, you are going to use the parallel axis theorem, which says that the polar moment of inertia of the first weld plus the area of that weld multiplied by the distance of the weld from the centroidal point or the center of gravity of all the welds. Again, I'll repeat, this polar moment of inertia about the center of gravity is calculated by, first of all, calculating the polar moment of inertia of the weld about its own center of gravity, which we are calling as Jg1. Jg1 is the polar moment of inertia of the first weld about its own center of gravity, plus the area of the weld multiplied by the distance or the distance of the point G1 from G. This is the distance of the point G1 from G. Okay. So this is some of the, basically we have collected some of the terms and written it in this form. And that's how you are going to calculate the polar moment of inertia. So first of all, you are going to calculate the polar moment of inertia of the first weld about its own center of gravity, and similarly you will calculate the polar moment of inertia for all the welds about its own center of gravity. Then what you will do, you are going to use the parallel axis theorem in order to calculate the polar moment of inertia of all the individual welds about the center of gravity of all the welds, and then you are going to add all these quantities. This is the polar moment of inertia of the first weld about the point G. This is the polar moment of inertia of the second weld about the point G, and this is the polar moment of inertia of the nth weld about the center of gravity of all the welds. And in order to get the total polar moment of inertia, you are going to sum it up. That's how you are going to design a weld which is eccentrically loaded. Basically what we have done, we have transformed the problem into we have transformed the forces acting at some eccentricity E to the center of gravity. So that will be all for the design of eccentrically loaded welded joints. And in the next lecture, I'll be solving some problems based on this concept. Thank you for watching this lecture. If you find it interesting, do hit the thumbs up and subscribe to get the notification every time I upload the video. Thank you.